Welcome back to Wander and Wonder. Today we were going to talk about the futility of the intellect. There was someone I knew a couple years ago. This was during the peak of the Trump and Clinton election. And this person figured themselves kind of like an armchair intellectual, and they'd even gone so far to put together a collective of people who, considered themselves politically aligned with each other, very politically informed, and very intellectual. Is to say, they have this idea that they'd gone over these ideas enough to claim some sort of authority in the hierarchy of who's the most right, or what's the right way to live, because that is sort of what politics are trying to dictate. That is what government is trying to dictate government to control the mind. I would suppose is a way to maintain a certain status quo. And if the government is aligned with what is right and what is good, then that will certainly show through in a population of healthy and happy individuals. That's not to say that the purpose of life ultimately is happiness and good health, but there are governments who have certain policies and their people will reflect. And you can see in different types of totalitarian systems, the ups and downs of it all. We can see terrible poverty throughout the Soviet Union. You could see it today, historically speaking. You can see it today in the third world. There are people and the opportunities are not there. The mindset is something which is acting in tandem with the government. So I would say that any totalitarian regime is not necessarily just governmental, but it has to be full spectrum. And this brings me to something I love talking about, the concept of full spectrum dominance. That is, everywhere you go, everywhere you look, everyone you talk to, this will all repeat the same message. There will be no escape from the narrative. And whatever narrative that is, it can depend day to day, but we can see tests of the control network at play, whenever there's some big news event, especially ones that concern the individual. So as long as you're able to stay insulated from these events, you will have resisted full spectrum domination. But these people, because they are individuals, at the top, calling the shots, media hotshots, corporate overlords, politicians, these people know that you're going to have to go to the grocery store, and so they contract a local big box grocery store with a radio station that just so happens to play an ad for the very thing that you had insulated yourself from. And just like that, so it goes further than just supporting local to strengthen short supply chains. Is also to insulate yourself from not only the preservatives and chemical warfare from the corporate machine, which may or may not really care about your health. I don't want to attribute malice necessarily, but I think they thought this would be a good way to save money, and bada boom, bada bing, you're eating poison, drinking poison, just in general. But yeah, you're also sparing yourself a poisoning of the mind. And this poisoning of the mind occurs, organically over time. We've seen things like repetition be used. And I think repetition of short mantras, it's very primal, must be built into humans on a genetic level, because we tend to remember slogans. We're very slogan oriented. So if some campaign, and I don't want to mention any specifics because I'm actually doing y'all a solid by just completely insulating you from any specific example. I already regret any specific examples I've given, any sort of like not nilk reality, media, political matrix, any names I've mentioned. I already regret it. But so once you've gone through this process of like completely insulating yourself, you're able to live a natural life, a life which is informed by like all life around you, organic life, organic structures, and even to be a steward of the land is to walk a very fine line as we walk this trail through this beautiful forest. I would think that if you were to affect nature in such a way that you could experience a higher beauty than that of nature itself, or even find a type of like harmonic structure, something that could combine aspects of art, like artificiality, art, and nature. I think those are some of the most beautiful things of all time. Love to see nature taking back what originally belonged to it, the resources used to build, great structures, and even the mind. So I would like to think that as nature reclaims these physical structures, there is some type of mind matrix, and these brilliant minds that were able to design such beautiful things, in a way, their mind is given away to something greater than their own mind at the end of it all. We can look to many different like religions, spiritual paths, and things like that. But I would like to say that like this sort of mind matrix, the earth, which the mind will decay into after its passing, that's a very symbolic way to say. I would like to think that exists, and whether consciousness can remain or whether consciousness takes different form, is totally up for debate. But anyways, I didn't actually really get to talk about the futility of the intellect. So anyways, these people, they thought they were hot shots on top of the world, intellectuals, and I think this is where I really wanted to organize in some way and create some sort of a difference in the world, in some way that I could, I didn't want to just sit back and insulate myself at this point. I was very involved. My mind was poisoned, and I believed I was right about things. Anyways, they did a really poor job organizing. I thought they were wrong about a lot of things. And I think that ultimately, if government is to determine a way to live, then these people should reflect that way of life. If you really have lost all humility and are just steeped in pride, you are gonna be blind to see that maybe you're a fat piece of shit. Maybe you're lazy, maybe you're broke, maybe you aren't as self-sufficient as you want to be. But we would want to take the life of an American or a Canadian or just a citizen of this world and say this is how we want you to think, this is how we want you to act. It's not only government, but it's full spectrum domination. And unless you do a physiognomy check on that shit, it can be pretty cringe to let somebody else decide how you live. Look at the physical fitness of our politicians. Disgusting. That's it for today.